back, everyone. We're moving on to our next section, which is voyeurism, feminism and exploitation, and our first speaker is Jenny Stoney with Photography Through the Window, Capturing the Moment or an Invasion of Privacy.
Photography Through the Window, Capturing the Moment or an Invasion of Privacy. Photography that deals with voyeurism has limits. How far can a photographer push the boundaries of privacy for the sake of art? The rules on ethical boundaries of watching and photographing people in the privacy of their own home are unclear. Is it wrong to look at someone when they don't know you are on the street, or to look through someone's window? If people want privacy, then should they close the curtain, hereby making themselves less susceptible to prying eyes and lenses? In his 2009 publication, After Photography, Fred Richan examines the US law and the Video Voyeurism Prevention Act of 2004. This legislative act determines the rights of privacy, especially in federal property. The act states, "Whoever in the special maritime and territorial jurisdiction of the United States has the intent to capture an image or a private area of an individual without their consent, and only does so under circumstances in which the individual has a reasonable expectation of privacy, should be fined, imprisoned, or both." Although this is only within the US and has a very specific cultural territory, the ethical implications are understood and generally accepted by Western society, and clearly indicates the challenges facing a photographer experimenting with voyeurism. As supported by Richan's distress when a camera was directly pointed at him in a cafe and the resultant loss of privacy. Whether in the US or the UK, the proliferation of digital imaging and mobile phone technology has brought about an increased pressure on ethics and circulation of imagery, which may be seen as voyeuristic. As stated in a 2004 report featured on internetnews.com, as cell phone cameras explode in popularity and practices such as image alteration, where the face of one person is digitally edited to appear on the naked body of another, become more widespread, the 108th Congress began steadily moving the legislation to the President's desk. Privacy laws need to be updated. There is an ethical dimension that is important to address. The impact of the daily availability of being able to make photographs has not been represented in the legislature. If laws are not updated, technology could cause a huge privacy issue, if it is not already. New technologies are constantly being created, such as quadcopters, which have caused many issues. As discussed on the BBC News video entitled "Cameras on Drone Aircraft Trigger Calls for Legislation," there are concerns about growing technologies and privacy issues surrounding them. Small mobile quadcopters can now be bought by anyone. These small flying devices have cameras attached which enable different types of voyeurism. The camera is no longer simply has the ability to see what the naked eye can see, but now has telescopic potential. In September 2012, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge were upset by the lack of privacy they had on a private holiday, with the couple stating their regret at the grotesque and unjustifiable invasion of privacy by a magazine which published topless photos of Kate. In Scopophilia, The Love of Looking, Don Snyder's essay touches on how the definition of voyeurism has changed. To paraphrase Don Snyder, not being aware of the camera is the new definition of voyeurism. Photographers have become uptight about the word voyeurism because it's often used to relate to something sexual. However, many voyeuristic photographs have nothing to do with sex, yet are still called voyeuristic. Sturken and Cartwright define voyeurism in psychoanalytic terms as the drive to look and the general pleasure in looking. Freud saw voyeurism, the pleasure in looking without being seen, and exhibitionism, the pleasure of being looked at, as the active and passive forms of scopophilia. This concept of scopophilia has been important to psychoanalytic film theory in its emphasis on the relationship of pleasure and desire to the practice of looking. Voyeurism now means to watch without being seen. Voyeuristic photography could therefore be the unseen photographer or the photographer who uses their work to explore voyeurism. Therefore, staged photographs and those taken having asked permission are also voyeuristic as they are inspired by voyeurism. They are just a different style and therefore have different aesthetics. The American press photographer Arthur Felig, commonly known as Ouija, took the photograph Lovers at the Movies in 1940. This showed people at the cinema. However, in the dark, they assumed to be in a private place and didn't expect to be photographed, assuming if they can't see me, then if I can't see them, then they can't see me. Cinema audiences are voyeuristic, as they are watching people on screen without people being able to look back at them. John Berger discusses the gaze in his 1972 book and television series Ways of Seeing. We never look at just one thing. We're always looking at the relationship between things and ourselves. As humans, we are constantly observing and comparing ourselves. This innate human compulsion instigates great interest in voyeuristic photographs. The work of Arne Svensson and the Neighbours, produced in 2012, uses windows as a tool for photography. The Neighbours' permission was not gained for this artwork. This series was on display in the Julie Saw Gallery. Svensson was taken to court over this series of work. However, he won the case because of the First Amendment's guarantee of free speech. Svensson stresses that his motivation was only to observe the nuance of human existence. He was labelled as a real-life L.B. Jeffries from the film Rear Window by Johnny Weeks from the Guardian photography blog. The images that Arne Svensson have produced are beautiful and natural, depicting the everyday life that many of us have in common. They are not violating or disrespectful and have been deemed ethically acceptable by the court. His photographs have shown no reason to be mistrusted. Svensson commented on his work, "I don't photograph anything salacious or demeaning." He also stated that he finds the unrehearsed, unconscious aspects of life the most beautiful. Svensson is not the only artist that shares these thoughts. Robert Frank, Dwayne Michaels, and many others have similar views to taking photographs. In comparison to Arne Svensson, Shizuku Yokomitsu undertook another approach to voyeuristic photography for her project Strangers in 1998. She overcame this privacy issue by asking permission through letters to her participants, asking them to turn up at the window at a certain time. If they turned up at the window at the requested time, they would have consented to the photograph being taken. This is still deemed voyeuristic, however it is more staged. The work is a collaboration between the participant and Yokomitsu. The subject is invited to take an active part in the project. But overcoming the issue of voyeuristic photography and privacy, it has become a kind of performance. You lose some of the natural human presence. This approach may be seen as being more ethically acceptable than Arne Svensson's, as all those photographed were willing participants. It maintains some of the elements of spontaneity, as the photographer doesn't know how the person will behave. In his series The Americans from 1958, Robert Frank photographed America as an outsider looking in. His photographs depict the inequity of social class. In Parade, he photographed people through a window who are obscured by the American flag, signifying the ugly truth of America hiding behind its flag and the American ideal. This shows a private moment in a private place, but gives the subjects some anonymity as their faces are hidden. In Robert Frank's The Americans, The Art of Documentary, Jonathan Day comments, "What strikes me first every time I open the Frank's The Americans is the strength and quality of its opinions." Although his images may not be representing the beautiful American ideal, the voyeuristic methods of his work certainly aids its truthfulness. As Jonathan Day said, "It's the truth as Frank saw." Dwayne Michaels also admits to looking through windows. "One day, I just saw a very ordinary gesture that turned out to be a great reward to all that patience. I think it's this that's a very human response. I think that people are always intrigued with dramas of other rooms. The intrigue lies in the idea of intruding, something you're not supposed to see." Although Dwayne Michaels also admits to looking through windows, his work does not come from capturing these windows. Instead, this is used for inspiration. It's the process of my thinking about it and then illustrating a particular idea, rather than hoping to sit in a window, actually to see something happen across the way. The whole prejudice people have that a photographer would set something up as foolish is just as real as anything else, but it has more power because it's an actual specific product of my imagination. Michael's way of working avoids any problems of voyeurism and privacy. His inspiration comes from what he sees as he passes. However, what he photographs, he has permission and consent, as these are all set up with models. This is a reenactment of the voyeuristic moment. This method still creates a voyeuristic image, but avoids ethical issues as it is totally controlled by the photographer. Voyeuristic photography has always raised ethical dilemmas, but never more so than in this technological age when images not visible to the human eye can easily be photographed and widely distributed. Some of the different methodological approaches to these dilemmas are demonstrated in the works of Svensson, Yokomitsu, Frank and Michaels. Each approach creates a different style of voyeuristic photography. If photographers wish to push boundaries of what is deemed socially acceptable at the time, they have to take the consequences of possibly being challenged in court. Photographic art is about being innovative and pushing boundaries. Privacy laws give a strong guideline of social acceptability, however, they can still be broken. Ultimately, people taking voyeuristic photographs have to be controlled by their own ethical beliefs and moral standards, as this is not an area that can be policed and controlled 100% of the time.
Do we have any questions for?
You mentioned about the
Quadcopters, yeah?
quadcopters. Are there any regulations behind those?
I know that in London there's definitely limitations, and it can depend on the spec of your quadcopter or drone. Definitely with commercial use, you need insurance, permission, and a license. So there's definitely limitations to where you can fly them and what rules apply and where you're flying.
How would your research perhaps influence if you were to undertake a voyeuristic kind of project?
I feel having researched and done this, my moral and ethical standing is that I prefer to have a collaborative participant where it's me and the participant together creating something. So I guess that would be a Yokomitsu approach, maybe with another approach with it. But I appreciate the different approaches there is to voyeurism, and in particular how they push the boundaries. But in my ethical understanding, I prefer to have a participant that I can have a collaboration with.
Do we have any more questions?